Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make the border up table runner quilt as you go. First thing you want to do is go to our website and find the free pattern, border up runner, and print that out so you have all your cutting instructions. You're going to need just 3 fabrics. You're going to need one fabric that is a border print. You're going to need a backing fabric, and then something to use as your sashing and your binding, and I'm going to use this wonderful plaid, diagonal plaid. So let's get started. I've cut most of my fabrics, but I wanted to show you how to cut the border print. So the border prints usually run along the selvage, so what you need is 1 yard of this, and you will notice that it has a repeat of the borders, of the different printed borders. And so what you need for this project is you will need at least 3, but usually 4 identical units from this border strip. And they can be different widths depending on the print, because of course we want to cut it so that you see exactly what you want to see. So for this one, from this fabric, it's from Holiday Happy Place fabric line. I have chosen to use the sheds, the she sheds, and then the pine trees. So this is how I cut my border for this project. But depending on, they could be the borders. So this one is about 7.5 inches. I have another one ready for a Halloween line, and this one is only 6.5. And then another one from a coffee line that's much larger. So this one is closer to 9 inches. And it can work for this project, any size. It's this wider the border that you're going to use, the larger your table runner is going to end up being. But I love using my Stripology XL ruler when I'm cutting out my fabrics from the border print. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do that. So if you have the XL ruler, you will notice that along the outside edges we have dotted lines, and the first dotted line is exactly 1/4 inch from the edge, which is a great way to figure out where your seam is going to land. So for example, here on this I want to include the she sheds and the trees, and I want my seam to end up in the gray part, not any of the red. So I am making sure when I'm cutting this one, so I will align my ruler so that the first dotted line, which is going to represent my seam, that's going to land right inside that gray part, and then I just make a cut straight across. So whoops. So there, making sure it's straight. So I want to now be looking at actually the printed line. And I make my cut across, and that's what you repeat through all the way down. And you're going to do the same thing. Then I just turn my piece, and I did the same thing for the bottom. On the bottom, I wanted to include this little red snowflake border, so I made sure to cut 1/4 inch from the edge here, so my seam will land right at the edge of this border here. So once you have all your fabrics cut out, you will need your borders from your border print, and then you will need your 2.5 inch strips from your sashing fabric, or my plaid here. I took one of those strips and reduced the length of it to about 36 inches. So it's about the same length as my border print border strips. So now I have my backing. So what you want to do with your backing fabric, you want to just cut it on the fold. You need 1 yard, so then you have 2 pieces that are about 21 by 36, and then I just sew them together with 1 seam in the middle, so you have a really long backing. This one is about 21 by 71 or 2 if you sewed it together, so you can trim a little bit off it. All depends on, like I said earlier, the width of your border print strip. That's going to determine the finished size of your runner. All right, so I have also gone ahead and attached my backing to my batting, fusible batting. So I've just fused that together so it's ready to go. And I have drawn 2 lines through the center of the runner, one lengthwise and crosswise. So I'm just going to start by taking my 36-inch sashing strip, fold it in half to find the center here. I just make little creases, and I'm going to do the same thing on the ends. So just make a little crease here and here. And so we're going to just align this in the middle. So I'm going to find my folds. Well, now I can't see them because it's red. There they are. So they're going to line up with that center strip here. And then the ends where your fold is going to line up right on that center strip going this way. So I know it's centered on my batting like this. And if you are not quite sure that is fully centered, you can always take your ruler and measure approximately how far. That's about a 9.5 over here, a little less over here. Let me see. Needs to come down a little bit. So once we are ready with it centered, we are ready to place our first border strip on that we're going to sew to this one. Now we're going to sew this quilt as you go to make it as easy as possible. So I want my borders to face the outside of the runner. So I'm going to place my first one like this, and I'm just going to flip it on top of that first strip that I laid right side up. Align these raw edges, and then I'm just going to pin this down through all the layers. You want to prepare your sewing machine with a walking foot. You want to have a walking foot on your sewing machine whenever you're doing quilt as you go to help move that sandwich through. And we're just going to use a 1/4-inch seam or a scant 1/4-inch seam, although in this project it's not so necessary to have a fully accurate seam. So now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine and just stitch down where I have pinned. So now I have added the one side. I've pressed it just outwards, and now we're going to add another strip on the other side, just making sure that it's going to face the outside as well. So I like to lay them down first and then just flip it over, align the raw edges, and then we're going to pin it down just like before, and then stitch along that edge with our seam allowance using our walking foot as before. So now we've added on both sides, and now it's time to start on our ends here. And so what I like to do, since these are not fully even, I like to just use my ruler and create my own new line. So I'm going to use my XL ruler, and any of the slits I'm going to line up with my seams, my stitch line, and to make sure they're straight. And then I'm going to find where I have an even line here, making sure I have fabric on top of all of them, and I'm just going to draw a placement line using chalk, or you can use a pen. This is going to be my placement line for the other set of 2.5-inch sashing fabric. So I have my strip here. All I'm going to do is just cut it on the fold. So it's going to be oversized. So here I'm just going to lay it, aligning the raw edge with that line I just drew, and I can just go a little further here so I can have a long piece here to trim on just one end. And I'm just going to pin this down so it's ready to go. And so no need to really measure anything, just find a straight line, make sure it's parallel with the seams on that first sashing strip. And then I'm going to do the same on the other side. Just turn this over. and bring my ruler again, finding that straight line, making sure that I have fabric underneath everywhere where I'm drawing that line and no raw edges, and then draw my placement line. And then we are going to pin our other side here. And now I'm ready to stitch this part down once I have this pinned. And you can trim the extra off now, or I just wait until after I've sewn it down. It's saving me a little bit of time. So now I'm going to go ahead and sew these through all the layers on each end. So there, I'm just gonna take my scissors and trim this extra length here off. It does not have to be perfectly straight because we do square all this up once we're done sewing all the parts. So just so that we don't have any danglies, I'm gonna trim these off. So now we are ready for the last part, and that's just adding our other border print on the bottom. And again, now I want it to face the outside. I have one long strip. Now, if you have wider fabrics, you'll probably need two because then your center would be wider. But I think I can use just one here and save my last border strip. So I'm just going to cut this one in half so I can use it on each end. And they're a little bit oversized, which is good. So I'm just going to center it approximately, flip it over, align the raw edges with that red plaid sashing strip, pin it down, and that will be my last seam here on this end, and we'll just have to do the same on the other side. Making sure I always check first that I'm turning my fabric the right way so it's oriented going outwards. So you can look at this runner from all sides and you'll see the houses, these cute little cabins or sheds. Holiday she sheds is what we're calling them. You see them from the right angle or however you're looking at it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and sew these down. And there it is. Now we've done all of our piecing, that is sewn all the fabrics onto the backing and batting that we want to do. One thing that I do at this point, if you want to, and this is optional, but adding a little more stitching in, I go in and do some straight line stitching, so just a little more quilting just along some of the lines. It's kind of fun to do it on each side of those little borders because it makes them pop out, just to add a little more quilting and stability. So I will do that both with the horizontal and then also on the ends. So I do that before I trim everything up. But then once you have added whatever stitching you want to do, and like I said, totally optional how much you want to do, then next step is trimming the runner up along the outside of the runner, of the top. So what I do, again, love using my XL ruler for this, so I will align the raw edges here on the long part of the runner with a ruler, making sure it extends to the end here. And then I also make sure that it's parallel to this strip over here so that I can get a good, nice corner. And then I'm ready to do my cuts. So trimming all of my backing and batting away. So I'm going to do my corner here first. And then I can move along the outside of the runner, just using the raw edge. I'm still also checking to see if I'm parallel with the lines along with my seam. So it's looking good. And once I get closer to the other end, then I want to make sure my corners are straight. Make sure I lay everything flat. Since I didn't do the stitching yet, I will still do that. So now I got to my corner, making sure I have a corner, so an edge of the ruler along this side, an edge of the ruler along the top. And now I can get a nice corner. So I'll finish trimming all the way around the edge of the runner and finish it then with my binding that I cut from the same plaid fabric. I have that ready to be sewn on and finished, and you have this fun little project done in a really short amount of time. Wasn't that a fast and fun little project? And what a great way to use those fun border prints. Thank you all for watching.